Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the kind of ghost story that doesn't start with a scream, but with a soft rhythmic sound, one that's easy to ignore until you realize it's been going on for 100 years. You're walking down a cold stone corridor in a long-forgotten English manor. The wallpaper is peeling, the floorboards creak just a bit too rhythmically, and there, just at the edge of your vision, you catch a glimpse of movement. A figure, bent over, sweeping. No, not a jump scare, not yet, just a gentle repetition, forward, back, back. And you think it's just the wind, until the wind politely asks you to lift your feet. You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and your local time in the comments. I want to know where in the world you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the threshold of Harrowwick Manor. It's technically closed to the public, but old estate homes like this tend to be like that one old bakery you swear closed last year, only to smell fresh croissants on your morning walk. They don't quite leave, they just linger. The first thing you notice isn't the grandness of the hall or the creepy oil paintings staring into your soul, it's the dust, or rather the lack of it. For a home that hasn't had a living resident in decades, the floor gleams. Not everywhere, just a perfect little path down the middle. Like someone's been, yes, exactly that, sweeping. And of course, you tell yourself it must be caretakers, someone maintaining it. But when you ask the groundskeeper, a wiry old man with the eyes of someone who's seen some things, he just shakes his head. No one cleans in there, he says. Haven't in years? Eliza sees to it. You laugh politely, but he doesn't. She doesn't like people walking where she's swept. That's when you remember your first step into the house. That odd sensation on your ankle, like bristles, soft ones. As if you'd stepped through the tail end of a broom just as it lifted off the ground. It wasn't the wind. Inside, it's a classic 18th century build, with Georgian bones and Victorian drama, ornate ceilings, tall windows, all the trimmings of a wealthy family that wanted you to know exactly how wealthy they were. But it's the hallway upstairs, the one lined with gold-trimmed mirrors that's said to be hers, the place she sweeps, the path she never strays from, always back and forth. Locals call it Eliza's runway. Children dare each other to leave flour on it overnight, only to return to a spotless trail by morning. No footprints, just a clean stripe, as if someone swept through it silently in the dead of night. And someone did. The manor was built in 1783. That's a fact. It housed the Weatherby family, minor nobility, with major secrets. The third Lord Weatherby was rumored to have funded a secret naval expedition in 1802, which may or may not have involved trying to kidnap a merman. Historians still argue whether merman was just a nickname for a particularly elusive sailor with webbed toes, but I digress. By the early 20th century, Harrowwick was showing signs of age, and it was then in 1919 that a young maid named Eliza Barrett arrived. Eliza wasn't from privilege. She came from the cobblestoned, soot-laced edges of Manchester, where the air tasted like coal and ambition. She was quiet, precise, and according to surviving payroll records, never missed a day of work. Not one. She swept, she polished, she folded linens like origami. And she adored Lady Weatherby, the last mistress of the manor. Their relationship is one of those whispered-about details that never made it into official histories. But in an old journal, discovered in a water-damaged box beneath the attic beams, there are passages, short entries, E brought me tea again today. She remembered I take honey, not sugar. No one else does. I told E she doesn't have to call me ma'am when it's just us. She swept the hallway 3 times today. I told her once was plenty. She smiled but said, "The dust forgets so easily." A little poetic for a maid, don't you think? Visitors to the manor today, paranormal tourists, amateur investigators, teenagers, looking for TikTok clout, often mention the same thing. It's not that they see Eliza, it's that they feel her, especially when they stand in her hallway. There's a warmth to it, like static on your skin, or someone breathing softly, rhythmically right behind you. They say if you listen closely, you can hear the swish, back and forth. One man swore he saw the dust shimmer like a tiny ripple in water when he tried to step across the polished stripe. He didn't try again, mostly because his shoelaces tied themselves together 2 minutes later, and he ended up in the kind of faceplant that gets you a viral video and lifelong skepticism. Quirky as it is, the phenomenon has a pattern, and historians still argue whether Eliza's story is a case of lingering trauma, psychic imprinting, or the world's most determined housekeeper refusing to clock out. There are even arguments over whether the original hallway design itself plays a role. Built with a repeating arch structure every 9 feet, some believe it amplifies energy, creating a resonance loop for lingering spirits. Sounds cool, right? Until you realize the acoustics are so perfect, you can whisper at one end and hear it echoed 3 turns later. And when you're alone, those whispers whisper back. Tonight you stand at the edge of that hallway. Your foot hovers. Will you step into her path? A soft breeze brushes your shin. The bristles again. You're not alone. Not yet. You lift your foot. It hovers in the air for just a moment too long, like your instincts are trying to make a final argument for leaving. But it's already too late for common sense. You've heard too much, felt too much, and maybe, just maybe, some part of you wants to be noticed. The floor beneath your step is surprisingly warm. Not radiator warm, this manor hasn't seen working heat since the Thatcher years. No, it's the kind of warmth you get when someone just stepped away. Like the ghost of body heat clinging to the wood. Your heel hits the center of the path, and nothing happens, at least not right away. Then comes the faintest tick from the wall. A picture frame shifts ever so slightly. You glance at it, an oil painting of some long-dead Weatherby ancestor who looks like he once tried to duel a pigeon out of boredom. His gaze tilts slightly off-center as though adjusting to watch you. You swallow. It's fine. It's just the air settling. Old houses do that right. But that tick-tick-tick doesn't stop. It's following you now. Back in 1920, Eliza Barrett had just turned 24 when she entered the Weatherby estate. She was one of 5 new hires that spring, all women, all from the city. What set Eliza apart was her silence. According to the now yellowed service logs, she didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't gossip, didn't complain. She simply cleaned, thoroughly. Lady Margaret Weatherby, in contrast, was an eccentric, widowed young, fond of lace-glove seances and writing in lavender ink. She'd inherited Harrowick Manor from her father, the eccentric Lord Cecil, who reportedly tried to breed peacocks that glowed in the dark using radium powder. Historians still argue whether the glowing birds existed or if everyone at Harrowick was just very sleep-deprived. Lady Margaret noticed Eliza immediately. She polishes with the care of a priest cleaning an altar, she wrote in her lavender journal. The 2 women formed an unusual bond. Over the years, Eliza moved from sweeping servant to unofficial companion. She had her own modest room on the second floor near the back stairwell. There's still a faint outline of her small bed frame etched into the wood as if the boards themselves memorized her shape. They say that if you stand there in the room at night, the corner lamp sometimes clicks on. Just one bulb, dim, like someone couldn't sleep and didn't want to be entirely alone. Despite the grandeur of heroic life inside was lonely. Margaret never remarried. The staff slowly dwindled as the years passed, but Eliza remained, quiet, constant, always with that broom. One of the surviving photographs from 1932 shows Eliza standing just to the left of the front parlor fireplace. Her hair's tucked under a cap, her back straight, her hands wrapped around the broom like it's an extension of her arm. What's eerie is the blur. While everyone else in the photo is sharp, Eliza appears slightly smudged, like she was mid-movement, or simply didn't want to be captured. Some say the first strange reports began that same year. A visiting cousin of Margaret's claimed she awoke in the guest room to the sound of sweeping. But when she opened the door, the hallway was empty. No wind, no footsteps, just the soft fading sound of bristles on polished wood. A few years later, Lady Margaret fell ill. It wasn't dramatic, just one of those slow, lingering illnesses. The doctors of the day called consumption or female frailty when they didn't really know what was going on. Eliza became her nurse as well as her maid. She sat by the bed, brought warm cloths, refluffed pillows, read from Margaret's favorite books in that quiet, lilting northern accent. But what no one knew, not until years later, was that Eliza also kept the hallway pristine. Even as her employer wasted away upstairs. Even as the world outside changed and war loomed. That same hallway, that same path, forward, back, there's a kind of obsession in repetition, isn't there? And in a house full of echoes, repetition is how the past leaves fingerprints. You walk the hallway now, and you start to notice things you didn't see at first. The faint scuff marks at the edges. Not footprints, Eliza wouldn't allow that, but small circular wear patterns, like a broom was always pivoting in the exact same spots. Over decades, they don't fade. In the late 30s, the staff had dwindled to just Eliza and one cook, who lived in the cottage out back. Then one day, Margaret passed, peacefully, in her sleep. Eliza didn't leave. The manor had no heirs, no one to take over, and still she stayed. The cook says she found Eliza the next morning not weeping, not frantic, but sweeping. That hallway. I have to finish the floor before anyone comes, Eliza said. Calm, like this was just another Tuesday. And then no one came, no family, no will. Just dust slowly gathering at the windowsills and Eliza still sweeping. You turn to look behind you now. The hallway is empty, of course, but the dust trail you left is gone. Erased. Your footprints have vanished, which is odd because you definitely didn't sweep, and yet the floor shines. You can smell lavender, a faint trace, not like a perfume, more like something pressed into the wood. Maybe polish, maybe memory. One peculiar theory among local lore buffs is that Eliza bound herself to the task voluntarily, that her sweeping became more than habit, more than duty, that it became identity. There's a word for that in folklore psychogenic tethering. It's the belief that a person can remain anchored to a physical task, looping it for eternity, if it was the last or most powerful thing they clung to in life. Usually it's dramatic, like a soldier doomed to march, or a pianist replaying their final concert. But Eliza, she just swept, over and over, for Lady Margaret, for herself, for the house, and for anyone who dares leave muddy footprints on her floor. Right now the air changes, a hush, like the house is holding its breath, and you hear it, behind you, that soft, unmistakable sound. Swish, swish. Then silence, you freeze. Because when you hear something behind you, especially in an abandoned manor, with a reputation like this one, you don't turn around. No one in any story that ended well ever turned around. But you do it anyway, slowly, and of course, no one's there. Just the hallway as quiet and still as a photograph. The ornate mirror on the left has a hairline crack running through the corner like it got tired of reflecting things that weren't really there. And yet, in the sliver of glass you catch movement. Not yours, not now. It's already past. They say after Margaret's death, Eliza never stopped cleaning, even though no one was paying her, even though the house began to decay. Even after the cook left frightened, she claimed, by the way, Eliza would talk to empty rooms, ask them if they were comfortable, if they needed fluffing. It would be funny if it weren't also a little heartbreaking. There's a long-standing rumor that for nearly a decade, Eliza lived in Harrowick completely alone. No electricity, no company. Just oil lamps, a dwindling pantry, and that same hallway she swept every day. Forward, back, forward, back. She was last seen alive in 1948. A local grocer claims she came into town paid with coins too old to use and said something odd. Lady Margaret's slippers are wearing thin. Do you still carry the lavender oil? And then, nothing. The house sat untouched for years. By the 1960s, nature had started reclaiming the outer edges. Vines snaked up the chimneys, birds nested in the eaves, but the inside oddly remained dust-free. Not pristine, not polished, just suspiciously tidy. Eventually, the manor was inherited by the government, marked as a site of minor historical interest, which is British for, we don't know what to do with it, but it's too weird to bulldoze. Then in 1975, a team of architectural historians arrived to assess structural integrity. Among them was Dr. Valeria Norton, a name still whispered in ghost hunting circles. She was a straight shooter, the kind of woman who could face collapsing roofs and crumbling chimneys without blinking. She left after 2 nights and refused to speak of the experience publicly for the rest of her life. But in a letter discovered after her death, she wrote, "The house is structurally unsound, but something else is preserved here. I believe there is intention in this place, a persistence. The air feels watched, the floor feels groomed. I swept dust onto the hall path to test for airflow. By morning, it was gone. It was that letter that reignited interest in Harrowick. Paranormal investigators, amateurs, YouTubers. You know the type, the kind who walk into haunted asylums shouting, 'If there's a ghost, show yourself,' while holding a GoPro and half a prayer. But Harrowick wasn't like that. It didn't respond to provocation. It responded to disrespect. One unlucky guy, Tommy T-Bone DeLuca, decided to moonwalk across the hallway on a dare. Classic 2000s ghost hunting YouTube energy. His footage never posted. Why? Because his shoes caught fire. Okay, maybe not literally, but they melted. Seriously. The rubber soles warped into weird curled shapes, like they'd been left on a radiator for too long. His teammates swear the floor had gone hot under his feet. One even claimed it hummed. Historians still argue whether this was an electrical fault, a chemical reaction, or simply a bit of overactive imagination and cheap sneakers. But Tommy never went ghost hunting again, and in the center of the hallway, right where he moonwalked, the shine is perfect, like it was immediately polished, scrubbed clean of his nonsense. This is where the debate really began. Was Eliza's spirit stuck here? Was it haunting, or was it something else entirely? A few fringe researchers proposed a theory that makes historians roll their eyes so hard they sprain something that Eliza achieved something called domestic imprinting. It's a concept that sits somewhere between psychic energy and extreme muscle memory. The idea is that repetitive, emotionally charged tasks, especially in strong-willed individuals, can burn themselves into a place, not just as ghostly apparitions but as phenomena, as intention, action without actor. So it might not even be her ghost sweeping. It might be the sweeping itself. Yeah, wrap your head around that at 2 a.m. Back in the hallway, you take another step. The floor should creak, but it doesn't. It sighs. That's the best way to describe it. A soft, long sigh, like someone is mildly annoyed you're still here. Like you've tracked something in. You glance down. Your socks are clean, but the floor isn't gleaming like before. There's a dull spot, just one, and you swear. The broom in the corner moved. It hasn't been touched in decades. That's what the docents say. Original to the estate. It leans in a shadowy niche tied with an old lavender ribbon. But the ribbon is swinging slightly, like it caught a breeze. And this place has no breeze. There's a detail often left out of ghost tours: the pattern in the broom bristles. Over time they wear down, get frayed, misshapen. But Eliza's broom, the bristles are worn evenly, as if used consistently with precision. And yet it never gathers dust. It never needs replacement, and it never loses that faint scent of lavender. Some say the broom is the key, that it holds a piece of Eliza's energy. Others think it's a prop, planted to scare people. But one man, an antique restoration specialist, once took samples from it. He mailed them to a lab. But before the results came back, he had a dream. He was sweeping endlessly. And when he woke up, his fingers were blistered. His wife swears she heard the swish, swish, swish coming from their hallway. Even though they live in a third-floor apartment, he burned the broom samples. Didn't want to know. Can't really blame him. You start to move again, quieter this time. You tread along the edge of the path. Not because you believe, of course not. It's just polite. The broom in the corner settles. The ribbon hangs still. And the shine returns, just like that. Like someone's forgiven you, or warned you. You start to think maybe that's it. Maybe the story ends here. Some lonely maid swept a floor for decades, left a few goosebumpy traces behind, and now the local teens dare each other to visit after dark. But Heroic doesn't end anything. It waits, because just as you exhale, turn back toward the grand staircase and try to act like you haven't just had a one-on-one with a phantom janitor, the air changes again. A low rumble so soft, you wonder if it's just your stomach, reminding you that ghost hunting on an empty belly was a dumb idea. Except this sound is beneath your feet, and older. In 1940, a German bomb detonated less than a mile from Heroic. Official records claim the manor was minimally damaged, but locals tell a different tale. They say the windows shattered from the inside, not from the shockwave, from something else. As if the house rejected the explosion, sent it back. Or maybe it just screamed. That's when things started going really sideways. During the war, Heroic became a brief shelter for evacuated children. 5 little girls, all under 10, all packed into upstairs bedrooms with iron beds and rationed blankets. The manor hadn't seen that much noise since the Edwardian garden parties, and it apparently did not approve. One of the girls, her name was Rose, grew up to become a teacher. She later wrote a memoir titled Lavender and Ashes. It was mostly about the war. but she devoted an entire chapter to the maid upstairs. She wrote, "She wasn't scary, not like a monster. She just didn't want us to touch anything." We were playing jacks in the hallway, and the pieces started rolling away from us, like they were being pushed, swept. Another girl now in her 90s gave an interview to a local historian. She said the same thing, we never saw her, but the broom came out if we were loud, always after lights out. During this time, the west wing of the house caught fire. No one knew how. The blaze started in the abandoned sitting room where Margaret once held tea. Firefighters arrived too late to save the room, but the hallway was untouched. Even as the flames chewed through the beams, peeled the wallpaper, and melted the chandeliers, the hallway remained. Not just intact, still polished. One firefighter reportedly slipped on it, cracked a rib. It was like ice, he said. The rumor mill, of course, exploded. The press called it a miracle. Locals called it a warning. Ghost tour brochures started adding phrases like cursed elegance and polished to death, because subtlety isn't exactly their business model. And yet not a single visitor has ever been harmed in the hallway. Not truly. No scratches, no screams, just little things. A misstep, a dropped phone, a sudden chill that makes you regret your fashion-forward choice of a crop top in autumn. If anything, the house doesn't seem violent. It seems irritated, like an old woman who's spent all day cleaning only for guests to traipse in and leave muddy footprints all over the rug. It wants you to respect it, or her. Historians still argue whether the house was ever truly abandoned after the fire. Some say Eliza died in that blaze. Others insist she never existed at all, that she's an amalgam of servant stories, wishful thinking, and that British tendency to anthropomorphize literally anything, including train stations and teapots. But here's the kicker: in 1952, nearly a decade after her disappearance, a group of Boy Scouts camped near the manor for a leadership weekend. Don't worry, they had adult supervision, mostly. One night they dared each other to sneak inside. 5 boys went in, 4 came out. The 5th wasn't missing, he was just stuck. They found him standing motionless in the hallway, eyes open, breathing shallow, but unmoving. When they tried to speak to him, he whispered one thing: "I can't go, I haven't finished the floor." He'd never been there before, never heard the story. And yet, they had to carry him out. Once outside, he blinked and said, "Was it clean enough?" He never went near the place again, became an accountant, moved to Wales, avoided wooden floors entirely. One modern researcher, a psychologist named Dr. Byrne Grayson, studied these incidents extensively. He called it identity residue. His theory that some environments absorb obsessive behaviors so deeply they replay themselves like a record on loop, pulling others in. Like how a song gets stuck in your head, except the song is a task, and your brain starts thinking, maybe I should help sweep too. The thing is, none of these accounts involve violence, just mimicry, imitation. Something in the house wants you to understand what it's like to have one job, forever. You pause now mid-step, because your fingers are itching. It's subtle, but you notice it, a twitch. Your right hand curls slightly, almost like it wants to grasp something. A handle, a broom. No, that's ridiculous. You shake it off. And yet, that broom in the corner, it's no longer in the corner. It's lying gently across the hallway, blocking your way. The broom shouldn't be there. You didn't hear it fall. There was no crash, no thud. Just now it's there, stretched across the gleaming floor like a velvet rope at an exclusive club. Except this velvet rope smells faintly of lavender and makes your heart beat too loud in your ears. So what do? You step around it, obviously. You don't touch it. You don't even look at it too long. You step with the kind of delicacy reserved for sleeping babies and live landmines. Because if Eliza is real, if she's here, you've just stepped into her workspace. And if there's one thing we've established, it's that Eliza really doesn't like people making a mess. Which brings us to the Ghost Hunters. In 2006, a popular paranormal team, the kind with night vision cameras, embroidered black jackets, and very loud opinions about energy signatures, got special permission to film an episode inside Heroic. They came in all cocky, cracking jokes about spectral cleaning ladies and how they hoped she'd do their laundry while she was at it. Eliza was not amused. They set up EMF readers' thermal cams, even a special dust particle tracker, to measure sweeping activity, which sounds like a joke, but was apparently a real prototype built by the tech guy named Nate, who smelled like Red Bull and regret. First night, nothing. Second night, still nothing unless you count one of them getting the flu and blaming ghost germs. Third night, at 3:12 a.m., every camera glitched, just for 1 second. And in that second, the hallway lights, which were supposed to be off, flicked on, and a figure appeared, slumped forward, holding a broom. No face, no detail, just the outline. Like she wasn't being filmed, she was being remembered. The footage aired, went viral, and suddenly Heroic was no longer just a creepy estate. It was a ghost story with proof, or as the skeptics put it, a perfectly timed power surge and a guy in a costume. Historians still argue whether the figure was faked. The production crew insists they didn't stage it. And trust me, you can tell the difference between a clever hoax and a quiet truth that makes your spine itch. But here's the part they didn't air. After they left the hallway, floor cracked. Just a thin fracture down the middle, like someone dropped a hairline curse across the surface. And it didn't stay cracked for long. 3 weeks later, a local artist visited the manor on a sketching retreat. She spent an hour sitting in the hallway pencil, dancing across the page. She reported hearing soft brushing sounds behind her, but no one was there. When she finished, she looked down. The crack in the floor was gone, and in its place, she claims the boards gleamed just where she had set her drawing board. The sketch she made that day, it's currently in a private collection, but descriptions of it vary wildly. Some say it shows a young maid sweeping with a sad smile. Others insist the broom is floating on its own. One art blogger swears the shadows form a second face watching from behind a curtain. Perspective, right? Or maybe Eliza changes depending on who's watching. You step further into the hallway now, trying not to think about how smooth the floor is beneath your feet. It's uncanny, like someone waxed it with ancient secrets. You notice small things. The way the light filters through the cracked window panes at the end, slicing the dust in perfect golden beams. Except there's no dust in the air. None. Just polished silence. There's another mirror on your left, just slightly crooked. You don't fix it. Smart choice. A man once did. In 1994, an amateur historian named Dennis Langford visited the manor with a notebook, a microcassette recorder, and the misplaced confidence of someone who thinks ghosts are just stories invented by bored Victorians. He saw the mirror, tilted his head, smiled, reached up to straighten it. His hand went numb instantly. He said it felt like ice wrapped in velvet, cold, soft, suffocating. He dropped the mirror. It shattered. He left in a panic. 2 weeks later, his wife caught him at 3 a.m. in their kitchen, sweeping, with nothing in his hands, just going through the motions over and over, eyes closed, whispering, "You mustn't let the floor forget." Doctors diagnosed it as a stress reaction, but he never touched a broom again. even vacuumed with gloves, because the memory didn't leave him. It's almost like Eliza is less interested in scaring people and more interested in recruiting them. You stop. You can feel something shift in the air again. Not colder, just tighter, more aware. It's like when you're being watched in a crowd, not by anyone hostile, just someone whose eyes are stuck on you. You're standing in front of the last mirror now. It's old, cracked, but still hanging, and for just a second, barely a blink, you see her. Not in the mirror, behind you, bending forward, sweeping, and she pauses. Because your shoes are in the way, you don't move, you don't breathe, you don't even blink. Because you've done enough horror movie marathons to know if a ghost stops sweeping because your shoes are in the way. You do not give her a reason to use that broom as a weaponized mop handle. Behind you there's no sound, but there's presence. A hush so thick it presses into your skin, like fog turned solid. Your back itches like someone's staring, not with anger, but with judgment. The kind of judgment reserved for muddy boots on freshly waxed floors. You step aside. Instantly, the air lightens, the pressure lifts, and somewhere behind you, the soft, slow swish resumes. Forward, back, forward, back. The sound grows fainter, as if she's moving down the hall. And even though every nerve in your body is screaming to not look back, you do. Of course you do. There's nothing there. But the floor behind you is spotless. Again, the hallway has rules. That much is clear now. Don't interrupt. Don't dirty. Don't assume your presence is welcome just because the doors creaked open for you. Historians have long tried to frame Eliza's lingering as a tragedy. An unfinished life, a lonely servant forgotten by time. But others, especially the fringe crowd, say she wasn't trapped at all. She chose to stay, and here's where it gets truly strange. In 2012, a physicist named Dr. Mallory Keene joined a university-funded research team to test electromagnetic activity at Harrowick. She was a skeptic's skeptic, went viral once for roasting a haunted toaster live on morning television. Her theory was simple. Old homes create sensory illusions due to electrical fields interacting with human neurology. Weird wiring Tawak ghost stories. She arrived with sensor scanners, electrodes, and exactly zero belief in spectral maids. First night, she reported normal readings. Second night, she started sleepwalking. Her assistant found her standing barefoot in the hallway at 2:46 a.m., miming sweeping motions with a flashlight. Third night, Dr. Keene refused to return. She wouldn't speak about what happened. But the assistant, who later posted anonymously in a parapsychology forum, claimed she heard Dr. Keene whisper one phrase in her sleep. She sweeps the memories, not the dust. Chilling, right? Also deeply poetic, which makes you wonder if the physics degree came with a minor in Gothic literature. Regardless, Dr. Keene left the project. But before she did, she released one last batch of data. Buried in the report was an anomaly, her own brainwave patterns, recorded during her sleepwalking episode. They showed unusual spikes in activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with habit memory and repetitive behavior. It was like Eliza had found a new host, temporarily, just long enough to finish her sweep. Another researcher later described it as neural hitchhiking, a ghostly Uber ride into the motor cortex. It's a fringe theory, the kind of idea that gets you booted from faculty meetings and invited to late-night AM radio interviews instead. But when you're standing here in this hallway and your own hand keeps twitching like it's itching for a handle, you kind of believe it. The question becomes, what is Eliza really doing here? She doesn't moan through the walls. She doesn't knock over furniture or slam doors. She just keeps cleaning. Some say she's protecting something, that the hallway is more than just wood and polish, it's a passage, a boundary, that beyond it, something worse waits. Something she's kept at bay for a century, using nothing but discipline and lavender oil. Others say the act of sweeping itself is a form of memory binding, that each stroke pulls away a layer of the past, keeps it from repeating, that if she ever stopped, truly stopped time in this place, might reset. Back to the moment of Margaret's death, or to the war, or the fire, or something weirder. You want to laugh that off, but then you hear the floorboards ahead of you creak. Not because someone's stepping on them, but because they're breathing. That's the best way to describe it. A groan low and long, like the house is inhaling, and from the corner of your eye, you see something twitch. It's the broom, again, but this time it's not on the ground. It's standing, upright, all on its own. You freeze, try to logic your way through it. Center of gravity. Maybe it landed just right. Maybe the floor is slightly sloped. Maybe you're hallucinating. But then it moves, just an inch, just enough to point itself toward the south wall, where there is no door, or at least where there didn't used to be. You stare, and slowly, the wallpaper there begins to ripple. Not dramatically, just enough to make your skin crawl. You step closer, drawn by the kind of curiosity that has killed more cats than karma. And there a sliver, a seam, a door, hidden, old, painted over so many times it's practically invisible. You never would have noticed it, not without the broom's nudge. The handle is brass oxidized green around the edges. Cold to the touch, but not locked. Of course it's not locked. Nothing is ever locked in a story like this. You turn the handle. The door creaks open. Inside, darkness. Cool, damp, smelling of stone and old wax. A stairwell spirals downward. You shouldn't go, obviously, but Eliza has cleared the path, and her broom is now lying gently at your feet again, as if to say, I've swept this far. Now it's your turn. Your fingers are still on the door handle, though you don't remember deciding to grab it. The broom lies there silently at your feet, angled not like it fell, but like it was placed. And that placement says everything. It's not barring your way this time. It's inviting. Of course, Eliza wouldn't speak, not in the traditional sense. She never did, not really, but actions. She was fluent in them. A perfectly made bed, a polished sconce, a floor so spotless it reflected sunlight like water. This broom, this opened stairwell. It's the ghostly equivalent of a raised eyebrow and the words, well, aren't you going to finish what you started? You step inside. The air shifts immediately, cooler, thicker. Your ears pop gently, as if the pressure is different down here. The stone steps descend in a tight spiral, and your footsteps echo faintly. Not the spooky echo of horror movie basements, more like the intimate hush of an old library. You count the steps out of habit, 27. At the bottom, another hallway, narrower, older, walls of stone mortared with care. The floor here is dusty, uneven, but there again is a faint path down the center, as if someone swept away. The dust years ago and time refused to reclaim it. Historians still argue whether this lower level even appears on the official blueprints. The original 1783 plans for Harrowick list no basement corridor beneath the servant's wing. And yet, here it is. A room waits at the end of the corridor. A small door, half rotted with age but intact. You reach for the handle and pause. Not out of fear, okay. Yes, a little fear, but also something more curious. Something that feels like respect. Because this is her space. Not just a room, but a sanctuary. You push the door open gently. Inside is simplicity, A cot with a quilt hand-stitched in a faded floral pattern, a wooden stool, a shelf with small jars labeled in faded, cursive lavender mint bay leaf, and in the corner a chest. It's not fancy, just wood and iron, a latch, no lock. You kneel in front of it. Here's the thing they never tell you in ghost stories. The scariest part isn't what jumps out, it's what you find that shouldn't exist. Inside the chest, a folded maid's uniform, clean, pressed, laid out like it's waiting for someone to wake up and put it on. Next to it, tucked between two carefully folded rags, is a letter, addressed in neat looping handwriting to the one who remembers. You break the wax seal because obviously this is your fate now, and unfold the brittle paper. The scent of lavender wafts up so clearly you feel transported. The letter reads, "I never meant to stay. I only meant to finish." But the dust kept returning, and she always liked things neat. So I stayed until the floor forgot her footsteps. Then I stayed until it forgot mine. If you've come this far, you hear it too. The sweep, the hush. She never told me to go. I don't know how to stop, but maybe you will. Just finish the floor. Eliza, you stare at the page for a long time. Not because it's confusing, it's heartbreakingly clear, but because the writing, though, faded ends with a perfect little flourish. The mark of someone who never rushed, not once. And now you know the truth. Eliza wasn't trapped by a curse or bound by anger. She chose to stay behind, first out of loyalty, then out of habit, and eventually because she forgot what stopping felt like. A fringe folklorist once said that ghosts aren't always born from tragedy. Sometimes they're born from repetition and the sad magic of a life lived in small circles. Back upstairs, skeptics still debate whether the hallway phenomena are collective hallucinations or environmentally induced trauma responses. Some even claim there's a gas leak in the walls, which is possibly the most British haunting theory ever. But none of those experts have read this letter. You fold it carefully, place it back inside the chest, and then you see it. Beside the bed, almost hidden under the quilt's corner, a second broom. Older, handmade, handle worn smooth. You pick it up. The weight feels right. Not heavy, not light. Balanced, like it knows the motion already. Like it's just been waiting for someone with elbows and intentions to finish the job. And the strange part, you want to. You carry it back up the stairs, slowly, respectfully, one step at a time. The hallway greets you in silence, expectant. You begin at one end and sweep, not because you believe in ghosts, but because Eliza did. The bristles kiss the floor with the same gentle rhythm you've heard all night. It's not eerie anymore. It's peaceful, soothing. Swish, swish, pause. Back, forward, pause. Somewhere behind you the air exhales, like someone finally rested, or someone finally let go. You lose track of time. There's something about the sweeping, the rhythm, the motion. It silences everything else. The doubts, the tension, the way your heartbeat used to rattle, like an anxious drum against your ribs. Now it just flows. You reach the end of the hallway and turn. Some part of you half expects Eliza to be standing there, applauding softly, giving you a ghostly thumbs up, but there's no one, just the stillness of heroic manner, and a floor that looks frankly better than it has in decades. You lean the broom against the wall, and that's when you hear it. Not the swish this time, a voice, faint, feminine, tired but warm, as if she's sitting just out of sight behind a curtain, or maybe inside the walls. Thank you. It doesn't scare you. You smile. Then from deeper inside the house below the hallway, you hear another sound. A dull knock, followed by a faint creak. Then, silence. You wait. Nothing else, of course. But the next day, the local groundskeeper arrives to check on the property routine stuff and discovers something strange. A section of floorboard deep in the servants' quarters has come loose. Not rotted, not broken, just lifted. Beneath it they find a small cache of items. A silver hand mirror, an embroidered handkerchief with the initials MW and a photograph. 2 women, one in a maid's cap, one in lace gloves, both smiling like they'd just heard a joke too good to share. It's the only known photo of Eliza Barrett and Lady Margaret Weatherby together. Until now, many argued their relationship was purely professional. Some claimed the idea of affection between mistress and maid was over-romanticized. Others dismissed the stories entirely pointing to payroll records and servant logs and those ever-reliable official histories. But history lies in the margins, doesn't it? In the folded letter, in the swept floor, in the photo hidden under the boards, in the things people do when no one's watching, when they think no one will ever remember. And that brings us to the whispers. Because after your visit, they start happening more frequently. Visitors report a new pattern in the hallway. Not just the sweeping. Now there's a voice. It doesn't speak much. Only a few words, a sentence. But it's always the same. Not so loud, she's resting. Some think it's a residual echo. Others say it's the house adjusting to your presence, or to your absence, now that you've left something of yourself behind. Because here's the thing no one tells you about places like Harrowick. You never leave entirely. A shoe print, a breath, a pause in your step. They linger, get folded into the walls like starch into linen. Folklorists call this passive imprinting. The idea that certain acts done in emotionally charged spaces generate a feedback loop, that the place itself becomes aware of the repetition. It's the same principle that causes entire crowds to go quiet before a national anthem, or for people to whisper automatically in cathedrals. It's not fear, it's reverence. You return months later just to check, just to see if the hallway remembers you. And it does. The broom is gone, no longer leaning in the corner, no longer blocking paths. It's simply gone. And the floor, still spotless, but this time as you walk, you feel no resistance, no cold stares, no judgment. The air is clear, still, as if the house has at last stopped holding its breath. One paranormal investigator calls this resolution haunting. The idea that a ghost, once its unfinished business is done, doesn't just disappear, it settles, becomes part of the home's memory, not a threat, not a shadow, just a rhythm. Like the ticking of a grandfather clock in a room no one sits in anymore. Still present, still faintly alive, but no longer in need of notice. And yet some oddities persist, like the floorboards in the hallway never creaking again, even as the rest of the house slowly decays, like the lavender scent that comes and goes at random even in winter, like the video someone captured last week. A quiet walk through the manor, no commentary, just footsteps. Then at the end a glimpse in the mirror, a shape, slight, feminine, not quite you, not quite Eliza, but something in between. A blend, a hand holding a broom, a small smile, like someone who finished what needed to be done and finally found rest and left a little piece of herself behind. So what happens next? What always happens in stories like this? The skeptics get louder, the believers get weirder, and the house stays quiet. Harrowick Manor becomes an obsession for a niche corner of the internet. There's a subreddit, of course, R-Swept Secrets. Users trade footage, anecdotes, dubious EMF readings. They argue over whether the floor still shines even in the dark, or if that's just the camera flash bouncing off varnish. They speculate over who she is in the phrase she's resting. Most think it's Eliza, but a small group insists it's Margaret. That maybe Eliza wasn't the ghost at all, but the keeper of the ghost, the barrier, the buffer, the one who swept the echoes of grief back behind the walls so no one else had to hear them. One late-night theory thread claims the hallway is actually a binding corridor, a place where grief, love, and duty all tangle so tightly that they spin into a loop like an old cassette tape that keeps flipping back to side A. Historians still argue whether Margaret Weatherby died peacefully in her sleep or took her own life after losing her family fortune to debts and failed investments. One tabloid from 1943 even suggested a love affair gone wrong, naming Eliza as the emotional culprit. But there's no evidence of that, no scandal, just a lot of quiet and sweeping. Because you see, the hallway hasn't changed. The same stretch of floor, the same light patterns across the boards, the same lingering air that feels just a little too sentient. But the energy of the place that has shifted. People report that it feels lighter now. Before, stepping into the hallway was like interrupting a prayer. Now it feels like slipping into a memory, and the memory has started to spread. One local artist paints a mural of Heroic in town, just the hallway, nothing else. It's gorgeous. Rich wood grain, glowing reflections, soft shadows. But here's the weird part, the varnish never dries. For weeks. It stays tacky to the touch, as if the painting itself resists permanence. Then one day it just sets, dries completely, no explanation, no changes in temperature or humidity, just dries overnight. People say it happened the day the artist gave birth to her daughter. She named her Eliza. Coincidence? Sure, if you believe in those. Elsewhere, a novelist checks into a nearby inn to research haunted locations. He visits Heroic Walks, the hall scoffs at the rumors. Later that night, he dreams of polishing wood. Not sweeping, just polishing, meticulously, carefully, for hours. He wakes up with his hands aching, and the first 10 pages of a new book written in longhand on hotel stationery. The book becomes a bestseller. He never writes another. Visitors begin to notice that the manor affects people differently, depending on how they arrive. Those who come for thrill-seeking TikTok clicks or ghost selfies usually leave disappointed. But those who enter quietly, who walk softly, speak gently, acknowledge the space, sometimes feel something. Not cold, not dread. Something like approval. It's as if the manor has decided to become selective, to only reveal itself to those willing to listen, to those who understand that not every haunting is a cry for help. Some are simply rituals, habits so deeply ingrained they echo beyond death. Which brings us back to you. Because you've felt it, haven't you? That itch in your fingers when you're holding a broom. That strange peace you find in repetition, the comfort of order. You catch yourself sweeping your own kitchen floor more slowly these days. Not out of duty, but something gentler, like reverence, like you're part of a lineage. You even bought a bottle of lavender polish. You didn't mean to. It just ended up in your basket. One night your phone rings. It's a friend. Hey, did you hear they say they found something under the manor? Your heart skips. Apparently construction workers, part of a restoration project, funded by a cultural heritage grant, discovered a bricked-over room behind the north wall. Inside, not much. A few wooden boxes, dusty linens, a cracked porcelain basin. But on the far wall, drawn in soft charcoal, was a mural. 2 figures, one standing, one kneeling, both holding brooms. The inscription beneath it, faded but readable, one to sweep the dust, one to hold the memory. Experts think it's just an old artistic flourish, a symbolic representation of servant life, but you know better. Eliza wasn't alone. She was never alone, and now neither are you. Because places like Harrowick don't just trap ghosts, they create stewards, people who carry the stories forward, people who sweep not to clean but to remember. You return one final time. You don't announce it to anyone. No vlogging gear, no EMF meters, no dramatic slow-motion entrances. You just go. A train, a quiet bus, a walk down that gravel path, with moss creeping toward the center like nature's own slow reclaiming. Harrowick stands the same as ever. Time passes outside its walls, but inside stillness. You step through the front door and the floor creaks, not from age, but like it's stretching. Like the house has been asleep and now stirs, just slightly, to acknowledge you. The hallway greets you with its usual hush, still gleaming, still faintly scented with lavender. But something's different. There's a frame now, just inside the entryway. Small, bronze, and inside it the letter. Eliza's letter to the one who remembers. Someone's framed it, protected it, made it part of the house, and suddenly you understand you're not the only one who's felt her presence. You're not the only one who swept. The story has grown. Others have stepped in, honored the rhythm, passed it on. You smile. Not everything haunted needs to be broken. Not every ghost needs release. Some just need recognition. You take a few steps down the hall, and then you hear it. Faint, distant, not the swish of a broom. This time, it's humming. A low, gentle melody. The kind of tune someone might hum while folding laundry or making tea. A tune that fills a space without crowding it. And it's not lonely. It's peaceful. You follow the sound not out of fear or curiosity, but something softer, like gratitude. At the end of the hallway, a door you've never seen before is slightly ajar. You push it open. Inside is a room with tall windows and golden light spilling across the floor. A chair, a table, a teacup resting gently in its saucer. And in the far corner, a broom, leaning upright, at ease. The room smells of lavender and warm dust. It feels like the end of a good book. The kind that doesn't demand a sequel. The kind that doesn't beg to be explained. Just understood. You sit, not because anything told you to, because it feels right. You rest, and the house rests with you. I wind down 300 words. The sweeping slows, the light softens. The hallways of Harrowick fade gently into the quiet folds of your memory, like a dream you wake from slowly, where nothing chases you, nothing screams. And yet something important lingers. A silence with meaning, the kind that says you're safe here. You picture Eliza one last time, not as a ghost, not even as a maid, just as a woman who believed in the sacred rhythm of care, who kept her promise, who swept not just for cleanliness, but to preserve something that mattered. And maybe in your own way, you've done the same. Because whether it's sweeping a hallway, lighting a candle, or sitting quietly, with your thoughts, there is power in repetition, in intention, in small acts of remembrance. The world rushes, screams, demands. But tonight in this story, everything slows. Your body relaxes, your breath steadies. The hum of the fan in your room becomes the soft echo of a hallway remembered. The weight of your blanket becomes the stillness of an old house at rest. There is nothing left to do. No mess to clean, no story to fix, no ghost to free. Just quiet, just sleep. And if in your dreams you hear the faint swish of a broom brushing gently across the floor, let it be a comfort. It means someone is watching over you, someone who remembers, Someone who's been sweeping all this time. Sweet dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.